Hello, everyone. Thank you for keeping it with us today. We are here with Bogdan Manta to discuss very popular topic. Your virtual background is killing your credibility. How are you doing today, Bogdan?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello to you and hello to everyone who is present. And yeah, we're going to have some really interesting conversations about exactly that, about virtual backgrounds, but also about your impact online, especially during live job interviews.
Cool. I would just give you first a little introduction about him.
Sure.
So he's a founder of the Essential Expert and the expert in enhancing the employee engagement, neuromarketing, negotiations, and the neuroscientific pitching, impactful, memorable training on workshops and company-wide content and a video strategy. So without doing a further ado, I would like to hand over the stage on.
Thank you so much, Urvashi. Once again, welcome everyone. And of course, we are going to touch a little bit on virtual backgrounds, but not only virtual backgrounds, but the impact that you actually have online, live online during a job interview, presentation, whatever it is. But now let's focus on job interviews. And instead of me just mumbling, because I don't want to do that, we're going to start with this. And this is our brain. What you see in this image, and just as a disclaimer, I'm not printing this paper all the time. I only have one and I keep on reusing it. I'm not killing trees. Disclaimers are always important online. What you see right now is an orange part and a blue part. The orange part is what we call the primal brain, the subconscious brain, or system 1. And the blue part of our brains, all this blue is the cortex or the newest part of our brain, and that is the rational brain. Why is this so important? Well, it is very important because, well, offline and online, but especially online, most people are trying to convince this part, the blue part. So we talk and we use very specific words and we try to look fancy and everything. But what people do not know is that in order for you to impact this part, the rational part of the brain, you first have to surpass the orange part of the brain, which is the primal part. And the primal part of the brain is exactly that, is not rational in any way. And the primal part of the brain, surprise, surprise, doesn't like bullet points, for example. So for all of you who are using bullet points, if bullets are killing people, that bullets and bullet points are also killing your presentation. You should never do that online. It makes absolutely no sense. Why? Because the primal brain cannot read them. The primal brain is very visual. So then images, painting pictures, and so on works. But using any sort of text or words or anything like that, the primal brain is unable to decipher it. So why are we talking about this? Well, we're talking about this because when it comes to decision or a cognitive decision, and that means you're a recruiter asking you for a second interview or you leaving a long-lasting impression, in order for that to happen, and that's a cognitive decision as we call it, you first have to go through the orange part of the brain. You first have to go through system 1. You have to go through the orange subconscious part of the brain. Once again, my name is Bogdan Manta, and I'm a neuroscience for business expert. And what I do is that I apply neuroscience and neuroscientific research that we do a lot with a lot of neuroscientists into business, into marketing, neuromarketing, and so on and so forth. And what is very interesting with online is that the primal part of our brain is much more engaged online than offline. How interesting is that? So because this is happening, at that point, the interesting part becomes the fact that you have a lot of different things that you have to focus on during a job interview, and you don't even know which one to start. So when we begin, people start to focus on their background. So some of them are saying, oh, you know what? I'm not going to use the background that I have behind me, like the background that you see right now. Instead, I'm going to blur my background, or I'm going to have a virtual background, as we call it. The problem with virtual backgrounds is that they kill your presentation and your memorability and your credibility and your impact by up to 91%. Virtual backgrounds are killing your credibility and impact online by up to 91%. That's a shocker, isn't it? And let me explain exactly what happens, because of course this is about neuroscience and it is about how the brain works. And I'll explain very simple what happens. Part of the orange part of the brain, or the subconscious part of the brain, is what we call the limbic system. And a big part of the limbic system is connected to a lot of things that our brain and our entire body does, and how we function as human beings. But the limbic system is also very much focused on reading deception. If we are to simplify it, reading deception. The limbic system is connected in what we call the freeze, flight, fight mechanism. And most probably you heard of it like the fight or freeze or fight or flight. It is actually called the freeze, flight, fight because this is the order that in the order that it happens. Now, the limbic system is a very ancient part of our brain, and the limbic system is very good at reading deception. Because if, as a Neanderthaler, you would see a leaf moving, clearly there would be a lion or a predator trying to attack you. Limbic system would instantly boost you with cortisol and adrenaline, and you would run away from there. Freeze, flight, flight. Either you would freeze or you would try to escape. Now, the interesting thing with the limbic system is that the moment you are having a virtual background, which is moving and shady, or the moment you have like a blurred background around you, that is being processed and translated by the limbic system as deceiving, deception. And that subconscious part of your brain sends the information to the rational part of your brain subconsciously. This person is not trustworthy. I'm not going to trust this person. Something is really like with this person, so I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to establish rapport. Not only that, but one very important neurotransmitter actually does not develop any longer. That is oxytocin. Oxytocin is a very specific neurotransmitter. Let's call it a brain chemical or brain messenger, right? That's what neurotransmitters are. And oxytocin is, some people call it the love neurotransmitter, some people call it the bonding neurotransmitter. Oxytocin is very important because the way we connect with each other as human beings, online and offline, has to involve oxytocin. But online is very difficult to establish oxytocin because you're talking to a screen. Right now, I'm looking into the camera. I'm not looking at you and I'm not interacting with you per se. So it is much more difficult to develop oxytocin in such a situation. So the moment you have all that blur or virtual backgrounds around you, the limbic system recognizing it as deception, together as a result, will no longer help produce oxytocin in your audience's brains. No oxytocin, no connection. No connection, no way of establishing rapport. And if we're not establishing rapport online, why would someone ask us for a second interview? Why would someone ask us to have another conversation when there's no oxytocin? People will not know what it is because these are not things that are rational. They're all subconscious. So what will happen is that the person will be like, I don't know. Something wasn't really working there. Something really wasn't working. And this is why you should stop. I always said it, the virtual background should be just, as prohibited as, bullets, if we are to talk about that. But this is just one of the examples of how wrong we all went online. And, we don't know what we don't know, because at the beginning, a few months back, 16, 18 months back, when the whole pandemic started and we were all pushed into the online environment, nobody really told us what we're supposed to do. Nobody really told us about the fact that actually I'm supposed to look into the webcam right now as I'm speaking, right now having actually eye contact with you. I'm having eye contact because I'm looking into the camera rather than looking at myself into the screen. This is how I would be looking at myself into the screen of the camera, of the phone, of the computer, and this is how I'm having eye contact with you. Isn't this a completely different interaction? Why? Because whilst we're having eye contact and we're establishing rapport, oxytocin and a lot of other neurotransmitters are being developed. Next to that, next to the eye contact, as we call it, what is very important is what we call camera positioning. And the camera positioning is a very tricky thing. And I think that this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see happening online. People are having their webcams either very low, so, they're like looking from up down, or they have them very high and they're looking from like down up. Neither of these things works. And why is that? You're supposed to have an equal rapport with the person or people on the other side of your screen. Now, limbic system or primal brain reads such information. So if you are sitting here looking up, it kind of looks like you're asking for approval. Or if you're looking from up down, it actually means that you're looking down at people. So camera positioning and this equalitarian or equal rapport are very important. How do you want to be taken seriously when subconsciously you're asking for approval? How do you want to be taken seriously when you're hiding everything behind your back? By the way, drop your questions in the Q&A poll. We're going to take your questions as we go. I'm not here to talk about myself. So Bindu said it's a very interesting topic and session. Thank you for that. Whatever questions, Bindu, you have, again, drop your questions because we're here to do this together. But let's go a little bit more into why this camera positioning is so important and why this equalitarian or equal rapport are so important. Well, they are extremely important because we for example, we ran a study with CVs. We had a CV where we asked the gentleman to write things like equalitarian, I'm equal with my team, the way I approach conversations is from a very equal point of view, and so on and so forth. And then, as the gentleman was being interviewed by recruiters, on purpose, we placed the camera very low, so then the person was looking from up down at people. None of the recruiters, none of the executive recruiters gave the gentleman a shot for the next interview. And nobody knew exactly, they couldn't really explain what it was. They said, I don't know, there was something didn't match. Well, I tell you what didn't match. The fact that in the CV, they read about that person being equalitarian, and then seeing that person looking down at them. These things are subconscious. We do not connect the dots. However, it is the limbic system combination, reptilian brain, and I'm not going to go too much into that, into specific elements, which are actually forcing a certain decision-making in our brains. And we go into what we call a cognitive dissonance. We go into a cognitive dissonance where what we see and what we read are very much disconnecting. They're kind of against each other. It's the same way as if I would be telling you right now, let's look at two important elements. Your brain right now is really freaking out because I'm saying 2 and I'm showing you 3. You're going into a cognitive dissonance between visual and auditive. It is the same thing when you talk about being equal and equalitarian, and then you're looking from up down at people. So these are just a few elements that are always interesting to keep in mind. Become aware, really become aware in how you showcase yourself online. Become aware very much of your camera positioning. Become aware of your eye contact. Become aware of nodding affirmatively. Become aware of your voice. Because, ladies and gentlemen, up to 86% of how you are being perceived online is given by your voice. It's not your content. If you think that it's your content, you are sadly mistaken. People will forget what you said. They will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. And they will not forget how you made them feel. By the way, one of my favorite quotes from Maya Angelou, but they will not forget how you made them feel because of the emotion and inflection in your voice. And I'm always using a very interesting analogy. Think of a documentary. You would never watch a documentary for 45 minutes if you wouldn't have the voice of the narrator. You would just look at a bunch of plants and animals, and after 10 minutes, you would change the channel. However, you can spend hours watching a documentary because you hear the voice of the narrator. You hear David Attenborough, or you hear Morgan Freeman. The voice is so fundamentally impactful in the way we establish rapport. And together with that, there's a lot of different neurotransmitters that are being developed there. But also, the way we create our narrative and interaction with people is very much linked to our voice and voice inflection. And sometimes I see people online, they drop some whatever on the screen and they start reading from them. The moment you start reading, you become a slide reader, as I always call it. But as a result, you no longer have emotion in your voice because you will be reading like this. Your virtual breakdown is your credibility in the neuroscience. That doesn't really make sense, does it? That doesn't bring you any emotion, does it? Difference with your virtual background is killing your credibility. And a lot of other things that we're going to talk about. So voice inflection is so fundamentally important when it comes to the way you interact online. So you see, there's so many things that you need to keep in mind. I always compare it with this. Going to a job interview is like a Rubik's Cube. You have a lot of different elements. And if you don't have them in the right order, this is going to be your presence during an online job interview. It's going to be messy. It's still going to be a cube, but it's going to be messy. So what you want to do is you want to twist and turn and twist and turn and twist and turn, because you have to keep on twisting and turning and learning how to make these things work, because it is what you want to do in order to obtain your perfect presence online. And this is why we do what we do, and this is why we focus so much on the neuroscience of how we interact as human beings, how we connect as human beings. So again, it's something that we always need to keep in mind. Always think of the Rubik's Cube. And every single time you prepare, make sure that is what we call plan, produce, perform. Make sure that first you plan. Do I have enough light from outside? How is my voice? Do I have the right microphone? Where is my webcam? Is it parallel? What type of background do I have? It's something that when it comes to backgrounds, it's something that we call the concept of the self. The way I build my background around me is the way I showcase myself to you, the concept of the self. The moment I put a virtual background, I go into something that is called, from a psychological perspective, masking identity. And if I'm masking my identity, how do I want someone to hire me when I'm masking my identity online? So these are just some of the few elements that are always interesting to keep in mind. Again, I'm trying right now to look into some questions. I see a lot of hearts. I see a lot of applause. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask them, because we just have a few more minutes left.
Yes, we have a couple of questions. Do you want to read it out, Bogdan, and then we can start from there? Or I can read it out.
Sure.
Yeah. In interviews, when the interviewer says that talk about you and your experience, how much should you expand in the topic?
That is a very good question, really good question, Fabrizio. And the trick question there is not to actually, it's not about the amount of time that you spend. It is about the context that you do. When they ask you about yourself and your experience, they don't care about you. They want to understand how you and your experience are going to add to the job that they have available. So you always have to keep in mind the narrative. And the narrative there is you need to talk about yourself and about the experience that you have built in a way that at every single minute of that explanation, you tell them, this is why you should hire me. This is why I'm here. And this is how I'm going to add value. Who I am, what I do, and how I add a value. So make sure that you say exactly that. They don't care about your hobbies. They don't care where you're coming from. What they care about is how you are going to contribute to that organization. Strategize.
Cool. It's a very nice answer. While we are interacting, so the next question is, while we are interacting online with the video, should I display the real or some good-looking images? I think you already mentioned it, but probably you want to say something.
I think if we're talking, I think we're talking here about real or good-looking images. Never any sort of images as a background. You need to showcase yourself, and you need to showcase your real background as it is. Sometimes people are saying, "Yeah, but my background is a mess." Then clean it up. That's what your mother taught you, right? Clean up your wall, clean up that part of the house. If it's too messy, at least you have that part. Let's not be lazy here. Some people are using it because they're lazy. Let's not be lazy. You're looking for a job. Showing up is not enough. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's truly, I think cleaning up would be a good thing. Next question we have is, or do we not? Do we have any more questions? Yeah, I think then we are done here. Thank you so much. I really appreciate. I personally enjoyed your talk a lot. There was a lot to learn there, and I think now in this virtual world, I think everybody has to focus on like how you present yourself. It's really important in these days. So
Absolutely.
This was really informative and very energetic. Your energy was amazing, and that's why you could see a lot of hearts and applause during the entire conversation that we had. So again, thank you so much for taking your time out and
Absolute pleasure.
And let us know all about this whole thing. And also thank you, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed and we answered your question. Yeah, that's it, I think. Thank you.
See you all very soon. Have a good day.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.